it was my first experience of receiving frequency, of receiving
Mm.
high vibrational frequency through a channel, not words. And I can never tell you what she said because the words weren't important. What I received was an energetic activation, and I sat there with tears streaming down my face. And my
Mm.
whole energy, my whole being, and I couldn't tell you at the time, I didn't know what was happening. All I knew was something was happening that I couldn't explain. You know, can I share with you how it started?
Yeah, that's the thing I wanted to get to next. I was just trying to make the point that there's not many people on the planet that
No, there's not.
have the level of ability that you do. And
Mm.
the only person I could think of that I've ever encountered personally and worked with over several years was this one person. So
It's
now that I've
amazing.
established my respect for your authenticity and your abilities, I'd like you to give us a story of how your life unfolded because you weren't always this way.
No, no, I wasn't. I'll
Mm.
start. I'll start that when I was young, I was actually always very psychic and I was very clairvoyant. And of
Uh-huh.
course, in your youth, when you're very different to everyone else, that can always cause you a few problems. So I did shut all that down, and I went on and was a journalist in women's magazines for many years.
Right.
You
That's what
know,
you told me. I forgot what you were
yeah,
doing.
yeah. And anyway, in my sort of mid 40s, I decided to start doing some energy work, and I started doing some training in pranic healing and aromatherapy and all the stuff you go into.
Uh-huh.
And I'd studied astrology and tarot when I was young, and anyway, I was doing all that, and I went to this retreat, and there was a teacher there who was a channel, and she was a very powerful channel of the Ascended Masters. Now, I'd never heard of these Ascended Masters, and I'm in this retreat and I'm pretending that I know all about them because I don't have a clue who they are. And I think they're talking about real people because I've never
Yeah.
read anything about the Ascended Masters. So I'm nodding my head and very sagely going, yeah, yeah, sure, And of course, I go home and I have to Google what they are or who they are because I have no idea and I'm astounded. And of course, being a skeptic, I was a huge skeptic of channels. And this woman, her name was Koala. There was a lot of teachers there, and I did all the courses at this retreat. And I went and listened. And I thought, oh, I better go and listen to this woman who was the channel. And she was doing her channeling in a teepee, so we're all sitting there cross-legged with our eyes closed. And here I am, I've got my eyes open, wondering where the wires are, that she's being fed all this information. Anyway, that's how skeptical I was. I really didn't believe any of it. And anyway, she channeled Lord Buddha. And it was my first experience of receiving frequency, of receiving
Mm.
high vibrational frequency through a channel, not words. And I can never tell you what she said because the words weren't important. What I received was an energetic activation, and I sat there with tears streaming down my face. And my
Mm.
whole energy, my whole being, and I couldn't tell you at the time, I didn't know what was happening. All I knew was something was happening that I couldn't explain. And it was extraordinary. So I went on to do a bit of work with her. And a few years later, she started up a school for a year. And I attended it, and sort of as she was a channel, so we're all learning this. There was about 30 people in the school, and I did it for a year. And at the end of that year, I was holding a meditation group. By that stage, I've been doing that for a while, and I was at home holding a meditation group in my studio, and we were doing this meditation. And at the end of those meditations, I used to sit and we just decide what would we do next. We do a little psychic connection, clairvoyance, whatever, and talk to people. And I got this voice very clearly in my head. I'm Saint Germain, and I've come to offer everyone a gift. And I went, oh, it was a very clear voice, very loud, very clear in my head. And I said, oh, and I knew who Saint Germain was by that time. I didn't have to Google him anymore because I'd become aware of who he was. And I said, oh, that's great. I said, oh, and thinking that he'd, put a little bit of light in everybody or send the violet flame or, whatever, something like that. And I said, oh, that's wonderful, He said, yes. He said, everyone can ask a question and I'll answer it. And I said, oh, okay, that sounds good. And then I thought about what he just said and I said, well, how are you going to answer the questions? And he said, through you, beloved. And this beloved said, no, no, not through me. I said, it's not going to happen. I said, I can't do that. And he said, yes, you can. So funnily enough, that group that night, it was twice as large as normal. There was about 30-something people in the group. And I said to them all, I said, look, I've just been having this conversation with Saint Germain, and this is what he's proposed, and I'm very reluctant to even think about this. What does everybody think? And they all nod their heads and, yes, 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 of course. And so, I said, oh, all right, well, I'll give it a go, but I don't think I can do this. And I had a lot of fear and a lot of, feelings this is not possible and all the doubts and all the questions. And in that moment, I experienced this incredible wave of energy that just went through me, like peace. And I just went into this amazing space of peace. Even today, I get goosebumps when I remember it. It's very clear because it was so profound.
It's
And
funny that right when you said that, I got goosebumps.
yeah, and it just went through me. And I went into this amazing sort of state, trance-like state. And we went around the room and everyone could ask questions. And he answered. I can't tell you what he said. I was in trance. I had no idea what he said. And halfway through, I came out of my trance and I said, oh, I have to stop. I thought I was going to be violently ill. I was, just all this fear came up again. Suddenly again, this huge wave of energy just went through me. And I just went back into peace again. And often when I talk about this, it brings tears to my eyes because it was such an incredible experience. And then I went into this trance-like state and he completed the circle and everybody got to ask a question, even my mother who was there at the time.
Wow.
And and everybody, got an answer to whatever they were asking. Now, I had no recollection of what he said. And it was for quite a while, I used to go into trance-like states when the masters came in. And I had to keep my head down. So those days, my chin used to be on my chest and I couldn't lift my head up. It was almost like I had a hand on my head. And they would speak and people would say it was not always easy to understand because I would speak and I would speak in a voice that had an accent. It wasn't my voice. And then Saint Germain came to me about a week or so later and he said to me, okay, now we'd like you to channel regularly for a group every Friday night, 6:00, invite a group to come and you channel and we'll bring through information for them and wisdom and answer questions. And I said, no way. I told you I was reluctant. I said, no way.
Yeah.
I said, I can't do that. I said, Friday night, everyone in Australia goes to the pub on Friday night. No one wants to come. I lived on a 10-acre property out in the country. I said, no one wants to come out here on Friday night. 6:00's too early. It's, every excuse in the book. And he said, no, they'll come. They'll come. And I said, no, they won't. And he said, just try. And I went, all right. So I put it out there that I was going to do this. Anyway, first night, 30 people turn up. 6 years later, they were still coming every Friday night for 6 years.
Wow.
And so I was...
Did you get over your fear?
I don't know. There's still that nervousness, not so much now, but in those days there was still that nervousness, and I do a lot of preparation beforehand to make sure that I was really being able to hold the energy. I really wanted to do the right thing. I really wanted to be present and offer, the right thing. I still had my doubts. I still had my questions. I still had my own stuff I was dealing with, so, but I'll say this to you that I ended up working with a council of 33 masters, and each one of them, I had to channel each one 3 times, and each one there was this like a almost like a DNA strand of energy. They had to go through that, that little place in the back of your neck, where the spine meets, there's a bump there. It had to go through that place there, and then it goes down my kundalini into the earth and grounds into the earth. And
Yeah, you mean right here in the base of the
yeah,
skull?
in the base, yeah, where your little bump is.
Yeah,
So I
that's
used to go
that's where
through there.
your medulla oblongata is. That's the brain
Yes.
stem.
Yep. I had to go through there, and it went down my kundalini, down my spine, into the earth. Had to happen 3 times with each master. And
Huh.
before that happened, while that was happening, my head was never allowed to come up. I had to keep my head down and sort of speak like this. And then when I'd finished channeling 3 times, over a period of time, of course, not in a row, then when I channeled that particular master, my head could then be free. I could lift it up. I didn't feel like it was being pushed down. And I couldn't
Hmm.
actually lift it up. It was like a hand was on my head. It was, every
Yeah.
time. And so I've realized over the years, and we're talking a long time now, that when I bring through the frequency of the master, it's vibrational frequency, it's consciousness. And I share it through the words, but also through the energy I'm sharing. And that consciousness moves through me. And in some way, not all of it, I'm not as wise as the masters, and I certainly haven't embodied all of their wisdom, but a lot of what they share seems to come and sit within me, and it becomes part of who I am. And and that's also what I share with people, because when I'm channeling the words, and the masters have often said I could just say blah blah blah, it wouldn't matter, not the words.
Right.
It's
Hmm.
the actual encodements, we call it, on the waves of energy that move out
Yeah.
through the channel that touch people. So that's, I always say, we're a high frequency channel. So that's what we channel, is high frequency, not information or knowledge. Lots of other people do that. I don't actually do that, although there is information and knowledge in a lot of what I bring through. But it's
Yeah.
more about the frequency, and it's more about allowing that to touch people when they're ready to receive it, and that opens up their cellular structure, their molecular structure in some way. And I've seen that so many times now. So that's a bit of my story.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And what do you think it is that leads one to being selected for that responsibility?
Look, it's Paul, it's a good question, because I've often asked it, and the masters have told me that I actually have worked with them with this particular council before, not on Earth, but somewhere else. So therefore, when I incarnated in this lifetime, and it's not the first time on Earth I've done it, they came to me again when I was ready,
Hmm.
because when I was younger, I certainly wasn't ready to do it. Um, and that's why, because I have a connection to them that I was totally oblivious to for such a long time. And I have a not-for-profit group that's been going for 8 years now, what we call Mentors of Love and Wisdom. And they're all channel students that they've done courses with me. And there's 89 of them in this group. We've been together for 8 years. But nobody has yet stepped forward to channel, a council of masters. And I often think, well, that's strange. You think there would be more people that would do that, but apparently that's not the case. So
Yeah.
I don't like to say I'm, unique or individual or whatever, but it's just not the case. So
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that are involved that are probably not easy to pinpoint, such as past life experience, timing, the level of development that each soul is at, and whether they're ready to handle the responsibility. Because being a channeler, not only does it come with a lot of responsibility, because if people listen to what you say and it causes trouble, it
yeah,
certainly is not going to make your life easier. But oftentimes people are channeling such advanced information that Well, there's a lot of responsibility, I think, to be a channeler of higher consciousness, because the paradox of it is, as you know, things that are often very true and very profound are often heavily rejected.
And I'm so pleased you said that, because that is so true. And I'm always shaking my head about that. Not no, but I'm just shaking my head in amazement and
Yeah.
never understanding that, But I think it's a fear of opening to something, something new that maybe makes us question what we already hold. I'm not sure.